In ancient history, there has been much evidence of the presence of slavery. These people who are forced to do work with no pay were, and still is, referred as slaves. The British didn't keep slaves till the early 1600s, and it wasn't until 1864 when Abraham Lincoln passed the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery in the United States. But did slavery truly end in the United States? Should demanding, dangerous work still be with little pay be considered slavery? This is the stories of children working the jobs of men. This is the Breaker Boys. In the early years of the 20th century, young boys between 6 and 12 of age would work in the coal mines. These children would pick through the mined coal, looking for any impurities. These boys were known as the Breaker Boys. Being a Breaker Boy was hard work. The boys would get up at 5:30 a.m., dress in their work clothes, and eat breakfast. By 7 o'clock, they're already working in the dark screen rooms. They would often sit on low, uncomfortable benches, working hours at a time. The air was often thick with coal dust and making it difficult to see and breathe, and the man who worked almost like a slave driver would often prod the boys into obedience. Then in 1885, a law required the boys to be at least 12 to be a coal breaker and at least 14 to work in the mines. 17 years later, in 1902, the law changed, raising the age to be 14 to be a coal breaker. Some states, though, didn't have registration at birth, so the boys would be hired as small for their age. This today is considered child labor. Child labor is any work that is considered dangerous or unsuitable for children. In the eyes of the law, children is anyone 18 or younger. Not all work, though, should be considered child labor. If it doesn't affect the child's health, education, and growth, it isn't viewed as child labor. Child labor is also anything that is forced upon the child, such as slavery and debt bondage and sexual exploitation. But at the time, there is no laws or people having an issue with young children working dangerous jobs for little income. Then during the spring of 1902, many miners at the Philadelphia and Reading Coal and Iron Company were called to testify about the mining conditions at a trial. A young 10-year-old breaker boy claimed he received 65 cents a day, equal to about $16.19 today. He also said he knew a boy that was only paid 1 cent a month, equal to 16 cents today, because when he applied he misrepresented his age. His mother gave the company his correct age and was still employed by the company. In 1915, with child labor laws in place, many mining companies started replacing breaker boys with machinery called jigs. Jigs is a mechanical slate picker which could do the work of 10 breaker boys. Jigs were in use when the National Child Labor Committee started investigating the breaker boys in 1904. A jig had cost $500. It cost $11,181.04 today. In 48 days of picking, the jig would have paid for itself. Every foreman interviewed stated the intention of replacing the breaker boys with the mechanical pickers as soon as possible. Sadly, child labor did not stop till June 25, 1938, when the Fair Labor Standards Act was passed by Franklin D. Roosevelt. The Fair Labor Standards Act, also known as the FLSA, is designed to protect the educational opportunity of children. This restricts the hours worked for children under 16. 14 is the minimum age for non-farm work, but they are still allowed to deliver newspapers, perform on radio shows, television, movies, and etc. 12-year-old Alexandra wakes up at 4 a.m. by Don Jose, her father. She doesn't go to school but instead collects curials, small mollusks in the mangrove swamps of El Salvador. She doesn't eat breakfast. Instead, she goes to get cigars and pills that prevent sleep if she is to work for 14 hours in the mud without shoes. She uses the cigars to repel the insects that inhabit the swamps. When she runs out of the cigars, she will just have to put up with the mosquitoes, and by the end of the day, she will be covered by thousands of bug bites. With all the effort, she will make very little money selling the shells. This is one of the many examples of labor today. There are many programs and organizations who want to stop child labor in both the United States and foreign countries. They often ask for donations and volunteers. A study in 2000 through 2012 has revealed that Asia and the Pacific has the largest numbers of child labor, which is 78 million, or 9.3% of the child population. But sadly, Sub-Saharan has the highest incidence of child labor, nearly 59 million, or over 21% of the child population. Children are not cogs to use in machines. We have hopes and dreams that cannot be obtained when we are deprived of education. America is considered by many as the land of opportunity, but the opportunity is usually lost if we don't go to school. This is how people feel about child labor, including myself. How will our society have a bright future when the next generation is struggling to survive?